If you had to choose between honor and love, which would you choose? Some men claim they know the answer right away, like it's carved into stone. But let me tell you something I've learned in my years chasing ghosts across this broken land. That choice don't come wrapped in light and darkness. It creeps in slowly, wearing the face of someone you were sent to destroy. Her name was Cassidy, and she wasn't supposed to mean anything to me. The first snow came early that year. It fell quiet and heavy, covering the trail like time trying to forget. I was riding alone, saddle worn, rifle tied to the side, the wind biting through my coat like it was punishing me for being alive. The town of Bristlewood was little more than a breath in the wind. One saloon, 24 folks who didn't talk much, and a sheriff who drank more than he shot. But they had one thing, a bounty pinned to the wall of the jailhouse. My kind of welcome. Wanted, Cassidy Whitmore, armed and dangerous. Robbery, assault, evasion of federal officers. Reward, $500. Dead or alive. I stared at the sketch. Soft eyes, sharp jaw, hair like a copper fire curling beneath a beaten-up hat. They didn't get her mouth right in the drawing, though. Too harsh, too cruel. The kind of mouth made by men who don't understand women like her. Sheriff Halder noticed me staring. "You gonna take it?" he asked, slurring on stale whiskey breath. "She's a ghost, Hart. Been 5 months since anyone's seen her." "I've caught ghosts before," I muttered. He laughed, bitter and cracked. "This one don't want saving. Cassidy Whitmore. Outlaw. Robber. Murderer," they whispered, though no one could prove it. But when a woman's too bold, too quick with a gun, too willing to ride without a man by her side, people start calling her things they wouldn't dare say to her face. I took the bounty. Not because of the money, not even for the thrill, but because something in me stirred when I saw her name. Like I'd heard it before, in a dream, or maybe in the stories men don't speak out loud. I saddled up the next morning, followed her last known trail east, up into the mountains. They said she was headed for the old mining roads beyond Birch Pass. Snow fell thicker with each mile, blanketing the world in silence. I rode through it like a man half dead, chasing shadows. And in the stillness of the pines, I started remembering things I thought I'd buried. Honor, love, the way both can feel like chains when you're caught between them. By the third night, my horse started limping. I found an abandoned line shack at the base of the ridge, its chimney still half standing, as if it was waiting for someone to come home. I stepped inside, rifle ready, and there she was, Cassidy. Not a ghost, not a legend, just a woman. Face flushed from the cold, eyes sharp like a knife's edge. She didn't scream, didn't run, just stared at me, the fire crackling behind her like a heartbeat. "Took you long enough," she said. "My rifle stayed raised. You knew I was coming?" "I figured someone would, just didn't think it'd be you." There was something strange in her voice. Not fear, not defiance, recognition. We stared at each other for what felt like hours, the wind howling just beyond the walls. Neither of us moved. Two animals locked in something deeper than a hunt, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to bring her in, but I also couldn't walk away, because sometimes the line between justice and love isn't a line at all. It's a blur, a storm, a cabin in the woods with the fire too low and the stakes too high. And sometimes the person you're sent to kill is the only one who makes you feel alive. Her name was Cassidy, and nothing after that night would ever be the same. What do you do when the person you're hunting looks at you like they already know how your story ends? That's how she looked at me. Cassidy, with those steady eyes, and a half-smile that didn't belong to a criminal. It belonged to someone who'd already lost everything and decided to live anyway. I didn't lower my rifle, but my heart had already taken a step toward her. Outside, the wind screamed like it was warning me, the kind of wind that carries the weight of every mistake a man's ever made. Inside, the fire burned low, casting shadows across her face. She sat slowly, not flinching, not begging, just watching me. Like she was waiting for something I hadn't figured out yet. I finally broke the silence. "You're real," she nodded. "Most days. People think you're dead." "Most days," she repeated, softer this time. I don't know why I didn't tie her up right then and there. Maybe it was the way she didn't try to run. Or maybe I was already slipping, already standing at that crossroads between honor and something far more dangerous. Love, if you dare to call it that. Not the sweet kind sung about in saloons. The kind that comes at the worst possible time, with the worst possible person, but burns hotter than any fire you've ever known. Cassidy poured us both coffee, black, thick, bitter, like the air between us. I asked her, "Why here?" She shrugged. "Snow covers tracks, makes men think twice before following." And yet I did. "You're not like the others." I wanted to ask what she meant, but something told me she saw right through me already. Later that night, I sat near the door, rifle across my lap, pretending to sleep. But I could hear her breathing. Slow, steady. Not scared, not angry, just tired, and that's when I realized. She wasn't running because she was guilty. She was running because she was finished, because this world, this cruel, dust-choked land, had taken from her everything it could, and she wasn't about to let it take her soul. At dawn, I woke to find her outside, standing in the snow barefoot, eyes closed, like she belonged to the cold. "You'll freeze," I said, stepping outside. She opened her eyes, looked at me with a quiet calm. "I used to come here with my brother," she said, "before it all went to hell." Her brother, the one the wanted posters never mentioned, the one whose name wasn't worth printing, but meant everything to her. "What happened?" I asked. Cassidy stared out at the trees for a long time, and when she finally spoke, her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from weight. "They came for the land first. Said my father owed taxes. Then they came for my brother when he wouldn't leave. Took him to jail for pulling a gun. Said I was next. And the robberies?" She looked me square in the eye. "I robbed the men who took him, took their gold, took their pride, left their guns unloaded." "And the assault charges?" She smiled, just barely. "I never touched a man who didn't deserve it." I didn't know what to say, because the truth has a way of settling into your bones like winter frost, slow, sharp, and undeniable. And there I was, rifle in hand, bounty in my coat pocket, knowing damn well that if I turned her in, it wouldn't be justice. It would be betrayal, not just of her, but of myself. You ever felt that? That, split down the center of your soul, when the man you thought you were starts to crack under the weight of who you might become. That's what she did to me. Not with words, not with her stories, just by standing there, just by surviving. We stayed another night in that cabin. Snow fell thicker now, sealing the door, like fate itself didn't want us to leave. And in the stillness, I kept hearing her voice in my head. Not the words, but the ache behind them. A woman who'd sacrificed everything for someone she loved. A woman who chose her heart over the law. And now, somehow, she was asking me, without ever saying it, to do the same. I stared at the fire until it was just glowing ash. The wind howled again, bitter and restless, and I knew that something had shifted inside me. Not loudly, just enough to change everything that would follow. Her name was Cassidy, and somewhere in those falling snows I began to lose the man I'd been, and find the one I never thought I'd be. If you had to choose between keeping your word or keeping her safe, what would you do? They say a man's only as good as his word, but I've known men who kept their word to the grave and dragged good people down with them. That night in the cabin, the fire burned low, the wind outside screaming like it had a score to settle. Inside, it was just me and Cassidy, two souls the world had tried to forget. She sat across from me, legs tucked beneath a worn wool blanket, hair damp from melted snow, and eyes, Lord, those eyes. Not soft, not hardened either, just honest. It's a rare thing to meet someone who don't hide behind anything. She didn't try to charm me, didn't try to beg. She just looked at me like she was ready for whatever came next. Even if it was the end. You always chase women through blizzards? She asked, voice light but tired. I shook my head. Only the ones worth freezing for. Her smile flickered, brief and pained, like maybe no one had said anything kind to her in a long, long time. We sat like that for a while, not talking, just listening to the wind and the fire crackle. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. And I don't know what happened first, whether it was my hand relaxing on the rifle stock, or her voice cutting through the dark like a prayer. You ever lose someone because of doing the right thing? I didn't answer right away, because if I had, I would have said too much. Her name was Clara. Years before Cassidy, she was the sheriff's daughter back in Cold Ridge. Sweet, smart, always smelled like fresh bread and lilac. We were young. I thought I had forever. Then her brother got caught rustling cattle. It was my job to bring him in. So I did, and I watched her hate me for it. Watched her turn cold. She married someone else 6 months later. Had kids. Never looked back. That was the first time I learned what justice cost, and it never stopped collecting after that. I did once. I finally said to Cassidy, staring into the fire. Thought I was doing the right thing. Still not sure I wasn't, but it didn't matter. I lost her. Cassidy didn't speak, just nodded. Like we were two graves side by side, neither one of us fully buried. "I'm tired, Jed," she whispered. The way she said my name, soft, uncertain, it cut through me. Of what? Running, watching over my shoulder, pretending I'm some monster because I broke the rules to keep my brother alive. I turned toward her, slow, deliberate. You could come in, turn yourself over. Maybe they'd go easy on you. She laughed, dry, bitter. You really believe that? No, I didn't. Not for a second. A woman like her? The courts wouldn't give her mercy. They'd give her a rope. You ever think, she continued, eyes fixed on the fire, that maybe the world don't want people like us to survive? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because I had thought that. 1,000 times. When the blood wouldn't wash off. When the sun rose and I didn't care anymore. When every town started to look the same, and every face blurred into another lie, I told myself. The fire dimmed. The room grew colder. But we didn't move. I think part of us was afraid to. like if we broke the stillness, the truth would come pouring in and swallow us both. Finally, I said it. "I'm supposed to bring you in by morning." Cassidy looked at me. No fear, no anger, just waiting. "And are you going to?" she asked. I stared at her, at the outlaw, the fugitive, the woman who had every reason to shoot me and ride out, but stayed. "I don't know," I said, because that was the only honest thing left in me. What do you do when your heart pulls you one way, and everything you've sworn to live by pulls you another? Some men call it weakness. I call it being human. And that night, that one cold, impossible night in the middle of nowhere, I stopped pretending I was made of stone. Her name was Cassidy, and for the first time in years, I didn't want to be the man I'd become. If the world gave you only one truth to live by, would you still listen when your heart told you another? Most folks don't realize how fast a man's life can change. One breath, and you're a bounty hunter riding for coin. The next, you're staring at a woman across a dying fire and realizing you've become the very thing you used to hunt. We left the cabin just after first light. The snow was thick and mean, slowing every step like the land was trying to hold us back. I could have turned her in right then, could have had her shackled to my saddle and riding toward a cold cell by sundown. But I didn't. Instead, we rode side by side in silence, heading toward nowhere. And maybe that was the first real choice I made. Not for honor, not for justice, but for her. She didn't ask where we were going, didn't look behind her once, just held her reins steady, eyes fixed on the trail like she'd already made peace with whatever came next. And I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at me the night before. Like I was the last thing in the world she trusted, and the one who could destroy her with a single decision. Around midday, we stopped to water the horses by a half-frozen creek. She sat on a log, quiet, twisting her gloves in her lap. Finally, she spoke. "You ever wonder if maybe you're not the hero in your own story?" I didn't answer right away, because I had wondered. Plenty of times. "Sometimes I think I started out that way," I said. "But somewhere along the trail, I traded that for a paycheck." She looked at me, eyes steady. "You're not like them, the men who came for me before. They didn't talk, didn't think, just saw a bounty, a woman with a gun. And that was enough. They were doing their job." "No," she said. "They were doing what cowards do when they follow orders instead of their conscience." Her voice was sharp, but it didn't hurt. It woke something in me I'd buried long ago, the part that still believed in something more than survival. We rode again, over the ridge, through the pines, past an old telegraph line split by lightning, and there, across the flatland, waited a homestead choked by dust and silence. Cassidy's eyes went glassy. "That's where I was raised." The house was falling in on itself. Boards twisted, windows gone. But she dismounted and walked up like it was still alive. She touched the door frame like a ghost touching its own grave. "This is where they came," she said softly. "Two men. Said my father was 3 months behind on taxes. Told him he had 1 week to clear out. He refused. My brother stood up to them. Next thing we know, there's a warrant on his head. And me, I became the insurance." I felt the heat rise in my chest. "I've heard stories like that," I said, "but I didn't know they were true." She looked at me, calm but hard. "They're always true. You just have to listen to the people no one asks." That night, we camped near the broken barn. The fire flickered low, just like it had in the cabin. And again, we sat across from each other, But something had changed. I couldn't stop thinking about the badge I used to wear, about the sheriff back in Bristlewood, Halder. He was the one who'd posted the bounty, the one who'd told me Cassidy was just another outlaw. But Halder, he was no saint. He was tied up with land deeds, property scams, backdoor deals. I knew that. Hell, I'd seen it with my own eyes years ago, and now I realized Cassidy wasn't the criminal. She was the loose end. So what do you do when the man who gave you your orders is the one who broke the law? I looked at Cassidy, saw the way the firelight danced in her hair, and I knew, plain as day, that if I brought her back, I'd be serving a lie. She caught me staring. "What are you thinking?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "The bounty's false. They wanted you quiet, not punished." She nodded. I knew that. I just didn't think anyone else would ever say it out loud. The wind picked up again, cold and merciless. I moved closer to the fire. So did she. And in the hush between us, something gave way. Not in her, in me. My life had been built on orders, rules, lines drawn in the dust by men who never cared who they trampled. But this woman, this outlaw, they called her dangerous because she loved too hard, fought too loud, refused to lie down and die quietly. And somewhere between chasing her and hearing her truth, I'd fallen. Not in the way you plan, not in the way that saves you, but in the way that burns you clean. Her name was Cassidy, and that night I knew I wouldn't be bringing her in, even if it cost me everything I had left. If you had to let go of everything you knew, your name, your badge, your beliefs, just to protect the one person who finally made you feel alive, would you do it? People think love in the West came with letters and lace, with weddings under open skies and smiles at the train depot. But love here, it came like a knife, quick, silent, and once it cut you, you never healed the same. We left the homestead at dawn. Didn't say much, didn't need to. There was a knowing between us now that what we felt wasn't just some passing thing wrapped in cold nights and crackling fires. It was something deeper, something that had cost us both. We rode for a place only Cassidy knew, a box canyon hidden behind a line of broken rock and pinon pine. She'd cached supplies there years ago, food, blankets, maps. She was always ready to disappear. But this time, it wasn't just about hiding. It was about leaving everything behind and giving me the choice to do the same. By the third day, we reached the rim of the canyon. The horses were spent. So were we. She looked at me. Same fire in her eyes. Same stubborn, beautiful edge that made the world flinch. "This is it," she said. "After this, there's no going back. Not for you." I knew she meant it. The badge, the oath, the life that used to mean something to me. It would all be gone. "Are you ready?" she asked. I should have answered yes or no. Instead, I just asked her something I'd never dared before. Would you have done it all the same if your brother hadn't been taken? She stared off into the canyon, eyes sharp and full of memories. "Yes," she whispered. "Because even if they hadn't come for him, they would have come for someone. And I would have still drawn a line." She turned to me, her voice lower now. I wasn't made to watch the world burn and say nothing. That's when I heard it. Hooves, fast, heavy, not ours. I stepped forward, hand on my rifle. Then I saw him, Sheriff Halder, on horseback, with 2 deputies behind him, rifles drawn, breath showing in thick white clouds. They'd found us. Cassidy stepped behind me instinctively, but I could feel her hand brush my side, like she already knew the answer I hadn't spoken. "Jed hard," Halder called out. "Step away from the girl. This don't concern you." My voice came slow, steady. "You got no right to be this far west, Halder. This ain't your county." "I got orders," he said, "and a bounty. She's wanted." "No," I said. "She's hunted, not wanted. And there's a difference." His eyes narrowed. "You turning on your own now?" I looked back at Cassidy, at the way her hands didn't shake, at the calm on her face, the kind you only get when you've already made peace with dying. And I turned back to him. "I'm doing what you stopped doing a long time ago, Halder, listening to the truth." He reached for his gun. I raised mine first. The deputies hesitated. One lowered his weapon. Halder held his stance a second too long, then finally dropped his hand. "Fine," he said, "but she won't get far. There's always someone else coming." I didn't answer, because I knew he was right. This land eats stories like hers, like ours. But sometimes you get one chance to rewrite the ending. By nightfall, we were on the move again. New path, new names. Cassidy became someone else, a widow, a traveler, a woman with no past. And I disappeared too, traded my badge for silence, my rifle for something less visible but heavier. Years passed, seasons changed, and then, one morning, in a quiet town by a silver lake, I saw her, Cassidy, hair tied back, eyes softer now, holding the hand of a small boy with her brother's smile. She didn't see me, and I didn't let her. I just stood there, hand in my coat pocket, feeling the ghost of the man I used to be. Because sometimes love isn't about staying. Sometimes it's about letting go before the world takes what little light is left. Her name was Cassidy, and I gave up everything to make sure that name didn't end on a wanted poster, but in peace, in freedom, in love, the kind most men never understand. So if you had to choose between honor and love, would you do what's right, or would you do what's good? I made my choice, and I never looked back.